You know, one of the things that we set out to do from the very beginning was make this an environmental production and make it that you came into this world and you didn't escape it. You were part of the world. And what's great for the audiences is that it makes you feel like you're at the old garage, at the old theater, because it is so intimate. And you're never going to see a show. You're never really going to see Les Mis done like this anywhere, I think. I don't think anyone's crazy enough to do it the way we're doing it, because you know, it's so huge with the cast and the orchestra, but yet in that intimate setting, it becomes so intense and you become so emotionally charged with the characters because they're right there and you feel like you're living it. And the great thing about the show is the way it's been designed is that you don't feel like you're seeing the barricades, you feel like you're on the barricades. You don't feel like you're seeing the tavern, you feel like you're in the tavern. And it's a really great, overwhelming experience for people because it puts you in the world of the play. And you know, Cameron McIntosh has been fantastic and very supportive of Signature. And you know, I've been talking with him about the show, and you know, we sent him pictures of the production. He was just like, oh my God, this looks so intense and so interesting. I can't wait to see it. And I think it is that. It's very different and it's very unique, and it's what makes Signature really Signature. And that's what's been so much fun, to actually take a great show like Les Miserables and turn it inside out and discover all these new things and bring these characters to life in a whole new way. And I think what's been exciting also is the characters, the actors who have done this show before are getting to rediscover it, and they're rediscovering it in a whole new way, just because A, the theater is so much smaller, and also because the way the production is being designed and done. So it's been really a really terrific process of really rediscovering a great old friend.
I think the difference between the original production of Les Mis that I've seen 5 or 6 times and this production is that the movement really comes mostly from the people. And so the space is creating just kind of a flowing space, whereas the original production was really a big machine that was kind of moving people. Moving the people. We have a static space, and it's all about the choreography and the staging that gives you that sense of sort of cinematic flow that the original one has, and that is also inherent in the music. I mean, one of the things I've been noticing in the last couple of days, now that we have the orchestra, is that it just never stops moving. There's always either people singing or the music is continuing. So there's never a moment like you have in a lot of shows where you feel like you're sort of slowing down and breathing. It actually feels like you're constantly supposed to be paying attention and constantly supposed to be getting something from the story. So making a space that allows people to keep moving and things that come into the space to come in and go out of the space fluidly is, I think, the trickiest part. The look of using steel and windows, it really again comes from the sense of barricade and the chaos that happened, and a kind of revolution, an industrial revolution that happened, that happens during the show. And so we decided we wanted to just make an environment that wasn't really realistic, but that was just consuming the whole space and the whole audience. And so we just got a lot of junk steel and junk windows and just completely filled the space and surrounded the whole audience with it. I think we've achieved that. I think it has all of the excitement, especially in the music of the original, and it's so exciting to see so many people gathered together in such a small space between the audience. I mean, the relationship between the audience and the performers is just like this, and I've never seen Les Mis like that before. It's always been sort of seeing it over kind of a distance, and they're literally spitting in your face, and that's exactly right for our show.
The hardest thing about lighting Les Mis was dealing with a big space with a lot of set things in the way. All the windows and all the chairs. The huge flying window in the center of the space was like covered almost the entire playing space. So there's all these places where I couldn't put lights. So I had to like create all kinds of new lighting positions and just try to create different looks with the limited places we could put lights. And I think in the end it worked really well, but it was a struggle and we had to move stuff around a lot, and it was a process, but we got there eventually. In terms of using conventional lights instead of all the moving lights it was a challenge, but I think I found that once we got started, it was kind of nice because it kept the whole play in a sort of vocabulary that made it all one piece. And even though there was a lot of lighting cues, I mean, I think there's like over 400 cues in the whole thing, it has this cohesiveness and flow to it, and it just kind of moves from one moment to another and it just makes it really flow well. I don't know.
Master electrician is responsible for realizing the lighting designer's design. So he gives me a big drawing of the space with all the lights on it where he wants every single light to go. And it's my responsibility to hire all the crews and order all the materials to make sure that every light is exactly where the lighting designer wants it to be, and everything works and everything is gelled the right color. And the hardest thing about being the ME on Les Mis was, I would say, since there's so much scenery that hangs in the air, there wasn't a whole lot of real estate left for us to hang lights from. And so even Mark was saying, you know, I don't know how you're going to hang these lights where I want them to go, but I just said, you know, just draw them where you want them to go. Don't worry about whether there's actually architecture there, and I'll just make it happen. And so we had to do a lot of rigging and make real estate to actually be able to hang lights in places where he wanted them to go. There's roughly 500 pieces of equipment total, with all the lights and the foggers and the scrollers and the gobo rotators and the film effects units. So there's a lot of equipment. Mainly I spend a lot of my time just fixing equipment, because something every single day has to break, it seems. So that's what I spend most of my day doing, is fixing broken stuff around here.
Yes, I'm the deck chief automation technician. And that means the deck chief part means that backstage I help the stage managers make sure everything is safe and ready for the actors, make sure the backstage is clean and ready and all the props are set up and all the scenery is in the proper place and everything's working. And the automation technician part means that I set up all the motors for the automated scenery, run all the cables, set up the control systems, and make sure that all the scenery is automated and working properly. The automation computer has a program on it called SpikeMark, which is from a company called Creative Connors, and it's a special computer program for automated scenery. And within that program, I enter all the parameters for the automation and tell it how far it can go and how fast it can go and what directions it can go. And then from there, I program all the cues based on what the director or the designers want for their production. The hardest thing about Les Mis is because of the configuration of the stage, the audience is actually very, very close to where the automation moving parts are. And because they're moving parts, they make noise. And so because they make noise, we don't want the audience to know that they're there. We want it just to be magical for them. So the hardest part has been just making sure everything looks good and sounds good, and that it's completely, they don't expect anything. It's completely unexpected when a piece of scenery comes on stage. I think that the show is really great, and I think that when it comes together, it's really beautiful, and I think the set is gorgeous, and I think that the automation really adds something, and I think that all the elements combined together are making a really amazing show, and I think that's the best part.
The costumes only take the character so far, but if you don't have, for example, I can say specifically with the poor, if they have gleamingly white teeth and they don't have bad skin and their hair is clean and fresh, I mean, that's just, it ruins the look. So I spent a lot of time working out who would have specifically sort of rotten-ish teeth, and had to do a lot of research on that so that we didn't go overboard but still look pretty rough. And then with the wigs, we have to go, because the same actors are going from poor to non-poor, just what that is. It's a really dirty, mangy hair look into something that's suitable for a wedding. So I spent about 25% of my time doing all that stuff to make sure it was right. And it's hopefully still being worked on. I know there are about 42 wigs in the show, and we use 135. There's 135 costumes in the show. My favorite scene in the show is at the end of Act 1, One Day More, because I get to see all my costumes up there together. And it's a visual masterpiece with everybody in their own spots and all the revolutionaries out there, and you feel that's the energy behind the show is really huge right then. So.
One more dawn, one more day, one day more.
The hardest thing about Squirrel of Les Mis is that it's 3 hours long, or almost 3 hours long, and continuous, so it never stops. And depending on what you're singing or what you're playing, or in my case conducting, you're busy the whole night. I think the most rewarding thing about doing this giant show in such a small space is the experience of the characters up close and the music up close and being able to be part of it in such an intimate way. I think the band has a good time. When you first play the show and you realize that there's no place to stop and there's no place to read and there's no place to rest really, and you have to focus for the entire time, it takes a while to get used to doing it. But once you do, I think it's kind of challenging and rewarding at the same time. Well, so one of the greatest things about doing the show in here, one of the thrills for me, was to hear the ensemble for the first time in that space sing at the end of the day. And they come out, and all 28 of them singing exactly in perfect precision with their tremendous voices. It's just thrilling. I still feel chills thinking about it.